Also, thank you, my friends, for finally remembering my phone number. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Was the exclusion of John Paul Jones an obvious sort of...
Shut up. No. An obvious. Oh, it don't matter. It's just that Jonesy was busy and we're busy.
Shepherd's Bush Empire, London, a venue where Page and Plant performed on March 25th, 1998. This time, though, it was Page and some friends from the past. The day was Wednesday, July 13th, 2011. Jimmy Page made his second and final live appearance of the year next to the Black Crowes. Technically a reunion, they hadn't played together for 12 long years after their heavily publicized collaboration. Led Zeppelin's career lasted 12 years. The Black Crowes had been together on and off for 2 decades by then. Page joined them for a live rendition of Shake Your Moneymaker. Flashbacks of their bittersweet finale back in the year 2000 were all over the place. So how did the American rockers and Jimmy Page get together in the first place? If you're thinking luck, think again. This was a result of circumstance, touring, and musicianship. Both camps were close. They just needed the right middleman to introduce them, hence Robert Plant. The Black Crowes were Robert's opening act for just one date on his non-stop Go tour at the Miami Arena on July 14th, 1988. They reprised their role as openers for 22 shows in 1990 during Plant's Manic Nirvana tour. Robert met them and liked their stuff. For the Crowes, it was a decisive time in their career, with their debut album Shake Your Moneymaker selling 5 million copies and sort of saving rock and roll at the time. It was one of just 2 hard rock albums on the top 20 best-selling titles for 1990, next to AC/DC's The Razor's Edge. Their live shows, stage presence, and up to 11 guitar style carried the torch of past glories, with the press comparing them to 70s bands like The Faces, The Rolling Stones, and Aerosmith. Their classic rock and blues revival was a breath of fresh air in the middle of over-the-top hair metal bands clashing in with grunge. The Black Crowes touring schedule for 1990 alone was crazy, with 229 shows, followed by 147 in 1991 and 118 for 1992. They were everywhere, and like early Led Zeppelin, they brought down the house wherever they went. Sharing the bill with bands like Aerosmith, Heart, and ZZ Top made them industry prodigies. The Black Crowes played 5 Led Zeppelin covers on selected dates between 1991 and 1988 in the Ways of Communication Breakdown and Holla Love.
Whatever we feel is valid music, or whatever you listen to, is what you're influenced by, and it's not like, hey, the 70s were really cool, let's try to be a 70s band. Well, that's bullshit, because I'm 22, I was born in 1970, or 69. So I was born when all that was going on, so I have no idea about it. Yeah, because when I grow up and I reach a point where I've reached the point where I love music and I listen to it, and that's my life, and I'm sick of hearing about the 60s and the 70s. It's the one thing everyone brings up to us, and we're not a roots rock band who runs around and says, hey, this and that, because the Stones were great in their time, and hopefully we'll be great in our time.
Well, other bands and other musicians and stuff are free to do whatever they want, I personally and the Black Crowes feel that it's cheating, for the sheer fact that if you get on stage and lip sync to a tape, how are you making your records? We're musicians. You can't improvise, and you can't sort of get the same feeling from a machine that you do from a person. So we just refuse to really have that around.
Playing major rock festivals at the time made them cross paths with Robert Plant again for 3 dates in 1993 at the Rock am Ring, Medfins, and Glastonbury Festival. The Crowes' own Chris Robinson was a guest during Robert Plant's show on July 16 at the Brixton Academy, London, where they shared vocal duties on You Shook Me. Talk about the former Led Zeppelin frontman giving his blessing. A couple of months after their third studio album was released in late 1994, Robert took Jimmy Page to a Black Crowes show at the Royal Albert Hall, London in late January 1995. Impressed with their material, Jimmy Page made a guest appearance on 2 songs of the Crowes' show in Paris just a few days later. This marked the first time both artists shared the stage, thus laying the foundations for the future.
Have a very, very, very special evening. I know he doesn't need an introduction, but it sounds good saying it, Mr. Jimmy Page.
The Black Crowes shared 2 bills with Page and Plant for the Glastonbury and Roskilde festivals of 1995, as well as playing as opening act for Jimmy and Robert's Unleaded tour on July 12th and 13th at Glasgow and Sheffield. The good relationship between both camps got the Crowes added to the opening band list on Page and Plant's Latin America shows of 1996.
We really love to be on the road, so this makes it easier.
Yeah, this way to fit both things. So, perguntei pra ele assim, camarim muito bacana, tapetinhos e tal. Ele falou, a gente tenta fazer.
Despite their high voltage concerts and classic rock vibrations, things were not looking good in terms of record sales for the Crowes. They performed 210 concerts between 1996 and 1998. By the time their 5th studio album, By Your Side, was released in January 1999, every record after Shake Your Moneymaker sold less than its predecessor. Just to put things into perspective, Amorica sold 560,000 units, while the Southern Harmony and Musical Companion sold 2.2 million. You get the idea. Rich Robinson played all guitar parts on By Your Side, and 2 replacements came after the record was done, in the ways of Audley Freed on rhythm guitar from former Cry of Love success. And German musician Sven Pipien on bass. Produced by Kevin Shirley, the Black Crowes' 5th album was a back-to-basics project closer to the sound of their 1990 debut, as well as a direct and not so subtle reference to Rod Stewart, The Stones, and Humble Pie's Rockin' the Fillmore album. One of the songs, Horsehead, had a similar sound to Led Zeppelin. While the album was well received, some critics said, quote, "Purists will wonder why to buy this album when 1972's Exile on Main Street or 1970's Gasoline Alley exist on CD." I revisited By Your Side for this episode, and while the record is not bad, it suffers from an excessive wall of sound that creates ear fatigue. And yes, John Kolodner is credited on this record, so if you watch my Coverdale Page video, you know what I mean. Now, the problem with the Black Crowes' albums up to that point is the similarity in sound. Don't get me wrong, they're fantastic players, but the concept of the recording feels somewhat forced past their debut. I get it, it's a 70s revival with a 90s studio technique approach. I found the experience of listening to their discography quite exhausting. I'd much rather listen to their live shows instead. Sometimes these type of studio albums where everything is mixed up front beats the purpose of what made 70s records so good. Organic sounding light and shade, without corporate hands over polishing the final product. I'd much rather go for a Stones record than the Black Crowes, who end up whitesnaking their records with too many layers of rock. British photographer and longtime friend to Jimmy Page, Ross Halfon, was a key player in getting the Crowes in touch with Jimmy Page for a charity show in England. Rehearsals took place on June 25th at Nome Studios, London, the same building where the early 1988 Led Zeppelin reunion rehearsals took place, with Jones, Page and Jason Bonham.
Oh yeah, that's cool. That's right, yeah.
Unfortunately for the Black Crowes, they were dropped by their label Columbia, right after the special charity gig was held on June 27th at Café de Paris, the same place where Page and Plant performed in 1997. Jimmy shared the stage with 4 different lineups that evening. Things got started with the Black Crowes and Page playing a 6-song setlist. Next, Page teamed up with bassist Guy Pratt and drummer Michael Lee for an instrumental rendition of Dazed and Confused. Jimmy had not shared the stage with Pratt since the brief Japanese tour for COVERDALE Page back in 1993. This was technically the first time Michael Lee and Jimmy played this song as a standalone version. Next was Page, Pratt and Lee, joined by Steven Tyler and Joe Perry, whom Jimmy hadn't played with since his guest spots with Aerosmith back in 1990. This charity show almost feels like a fitting closure to the Post Led Zeppelin 1990 story, right? The show ended with all musicians on stage, including the Robinson Brothers, for a rendition of You Shook Me, a song Page had not played as a standalone piece since October 12, 1969. Because they were now without a record contract, the Crow's own manager Peter Angelus reached out to Jimmy's manager Bill Curbishley for help. Angelus was no stranger in rock and roll, with his resume including director for both Van Halen videos, Jump and Hot for Teacher. He managed the Black Crowes since 1989. His sales pitch to Curbishley was simple: ask Jimmy if he would be interested in playing some shows with the Crowes. Like an arranged marriage, the October 1999 dates coincided with Robert leaving the Page & Plant project for good, and the Crowes trying to gain momentum to get picked up by another label. We can speculate Jimmy didn't look at the big picture here, thus expectations got mixed up. Page was the David Coverdale of the situation this time. He served a business purpose in the same way David contributed to the Page & Plant reunion by shaking everybody's tree. Watching video footage of Page rehearsing In My Time of Dying with the Crowes echoes the 1993 rehearsals with Coverdale. October 10th, 1999, Giant Stadium, New Jersey. Jimmy Page was one of the artists that played at the Net 8 charity concert. Things got started with a controversial song from Godzilla with Puff Daddy himself, sharing the stage with Jimmy. Although the track was a year old, the chemistry of their Saturday Night Live performance was gone. Both did their best at capturing the lightning in the bottle effect of one of the biggest hits of 1998. You can check my video on the making of Come With Me for the complete story of how this song came to life. Past the movie soundtrack vibes, Page teamed up with Garth Pratt and Michael Lee for a second and final time in his career. One of the strangest part of the setlist was Domino, a Jimmy Page original composition played on a Danelectro double neck baritone electric. In what sounds like an open A tuning, Jimmy moved around the neck with chordal experiments and crazy riffing. This was his last creative output next to 2008's Embryo No. 2.
That was Jimmy Page. He's right there at Giant Stadium. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to be back because Jimmy actually is going to bring some special guests out. And I can't wait to see if the special guests are as cool as that guitar. We'll be back in a second.
Let's talk about Chris Robinson for a minute. Born December 20th, 1966, he had a 70s lead singer attitude and vibe. From the smile and facial expressions to his onstage banter and moves, he was like a black sheep, a black hair version of Robert Plant meets Steven Tyler. Where David Coverdale felt too grandiose as a Robert copycat, Chris Robinson had his own thing going with some of the Steve Marriott raspy vocal style. Because Jimmy's first choice for Led Zeppelin was Steve Marriott, his pairing with Robinson was an interesting alternate universe of what if Page managed to get Marriott instead of Robert Plant back in '68. The Page Crows, or So Crows, played a total of 6 concerts from October 12th through the 19th. Let's take a look at the average set list for this short tour. A big chunk of Led Zeppelin was selected for these shows. Most of these had been performed by Page on the Unleaded and Walking Into Everywhere tours, such as the case of Celebration Day, Custard Pie, What Isn't What Should Never Be, 10 Years Gone, Nobody's Fault But Mine, Heartbreaker, Hey Hey What Can I Do, and What I Love. The Great Zeppelin surprises came in the ways of Sick Again, which Jimmy hadn't played since Knapworth 1979, In My Time of Dying, which Page performed with David Coverdale in 1993, and Your Time Is Gonna Come, a track Led Zeppelin never played as a standalone number beyond a 1-minute reference in the Whole Love medley at Budokan September 24th, 1971. Black Crowes' material was represented with 1992's No Speak No Slave and Remedy, plus 1994's Wiser Time. Hard to Handle by Otis Redding and Shake Your Money Maker by Elmore James added some old school blues vibes to the show. Fleetwood Mac's Oh Well from 1969 was a fitting choice, as this song inspired Led Zeppelin's early versions of Black Dog. Last but not least, the Yardbirds' own Shapes of Things saw Jimmy Page coming back to a song he had not performed since May 1968. The 3-guitar attack of Page, Rich Robinson, and Audley Freed created a massive wave of 6-string crunch and quite a nightmare for the sound guy. Sven Pipien on bass and the great Steve Gorman on drums created a 70s groove filled with in-the-pocket playing. Eddie Harsch on keyboards added his sonic textures to complement a very powerful ensemble. I know this may be a shock for you guys, but Chris Robinson's voice on the Zeppelin numbers gets on my nerves, to be honest. He sounds like Rod Stewart in places. Now, he did a great job on the Physical Graffiti songs because his singing style was similar to a 1975 Robert Plant. His voice just lacked the power and style needed for the rest of the Zeppelin tunes. Where David Coverdale kind of overdid the high-range stuff, Chris Robinson tends to drown in the mix. Quote Chris Robinson on this project, "I didn't really have that much fun doing it. It was alright, and Jimmy's a phenomenal guitarist, but to me, it was just a job. I'm not a big fan of Robert Plant's lyrics or his singing, so that part of it was a little boring for me. I appreciate the honesty, Chris, because it does feel like another day in the office. From a musician point of view, I believe Jimmy should have only played Zeppelin latter day period songs to make better use of the Black Crowes' sound. All the 1969 and 1970 cuts sound messy in the sense that there's just too much killer guitar playing going on, and these were designed to be played live with just one axe. Now, the Physical Graffiti stuff was perfect for a 3-guitar approach, as Page grew ambitious in his recording techniques back then. For example, having rhythm work on the guitar solo for Sick Again is very much appreciated as opposed to a moment that always felt empty on Led Zeppelin's live takes. No disrespect to Untold Jones, of course, but that song needed an extra guitar layer. Sick Again is one of the absolute concert tour highlights for me. The Black Crowes' material sounded great on stage, with Jimmy's guitar parts a fitting contribution to a 70s sound he knew very well.
For the dress rehearsal. Watching pages from the teenage dream. Lobby of the hotel paradise. Who's the now on the wonder wall, yeah. Gonna be the one who leads me to shake on men. I can't sing, I ain't pretty, and my legs are thin. But don't ask me what I think of you. I might not give the answer that you want me to. Oh, yeah. So I want to introduce everybody to you. On the guitar, Mr. Audley Freed, y'all. On the bass guitar, Mr. Sven Pipien. Over here at Shea Stadium, we have Eddie Harsch back here. On the drum kit, Mr. Stephen Gorman. On the guitar, Rich Robinson. This is my favorite part of the evening. On guitar, Jimmy Page.
Hey, let's not forget on vocals, Mr. Rich Robinson. How about it?
have another guest here with us, Mr. Joe Perry.
Manager Peter Angelus orchestrated a last-minute plan to record the last two shows from the 1999 tour at the Greek Theater in Los Angeles. Jimmy Page was allegedly uncomfortable with this and hesitant at first. This doesn't surprise me, as he'd already recorded Zeppelin songs for Unleaded and played 207 shows with Robert Plant. The album wasn't necessary for Jimmy, but good publicity for the Crows in the eyes of their manager. This was not the Black Crowes' first time at the Greek Theater, with them playing 2 dates in June 1991 and October 1992. Opened 50 years before John Bonham's death on September 25, 1930, the Greek Theater is a landmark concert venue in LA. Funded by business magnate Griffith J. Griffith, who also financed the Griffith Observatory. The Greek Theater saw many live albums recorded there, such as Neil Diamond's Hot August Night and Love at the Greek, America Live, Harry Belafonte, Chicago and Earth, Wind & Fire, Joe Bonamassa, and Ringo Starr and his all-star band. December 31st, 1999, I played The Sims while I waited the world to end, thanks to Y2K. A decade had come a long way from the 1990 Led Zeppelin box set fever days. Technology slowly took over the offline world and prepared us all for the end of innocence, just a couple of years away. Page, Plant, and Jones were back at their separate ways, and Jason recorded his last album of the 90s, Born Again Savage. This was the 5th solo studio album by Little Steven. Yeah, that's the stage name for Steve Van Zandt, who was writing the early days of his most recent Sopranos fame status. This album is a rare thing, with a rhythm section of U2's Adam Clayton and Jason Bonham. Little Steven sings and plays guitar here. Kevin Shirley mixed the songs, and these were mastered by George Marino. Is the album any good? I will just say Van Zandt did a much better job on The Sopranos. Silvio Dante would not be impressed by this recording. Fun fact, me and my father used to watch The Sopranos when it began. It was a cable TV ritual to watch Tony and his cast of characters become one of the best shows ever. The year 2000 came and the world remained the same. Y2K was a facade to sell fear, computer software, and make a lot of money. Like the Little Steven album, producer Kevin Shirley was in charge of mixing the Live at the Greek album. The record was mastered by Led Zeppelin's 90s works himself, George Marino, at Sterling Sound. Bassist Sven Pipien was fired before the album's release, thus he was airbrushed out of the band's centerfold picture. The original image did appear in the first batch of CD pressings for the album. The Japanese edition featured 2 extra cuts, Misty Mountain Hop and In the Light, recorded on their year 2000 concert dates. Now here's where things set the controls for a potential breakup. None of the Black Crowes songs made it on the final Greek Theater release, over alleged issues with their former record company. First of all, they didn't have a record label at the time, so the label in question was American Recordings, formerly known as Def Recordings. Founded by Rick Rubin in 1988, a distribution deal was signed with Columbia in 1997. Yes, the same label that dropped the Crowes in 1999. Why a record label wouldn't grant permission for their songs to be included in a live album with Jimmy Page makes no sense. 14 of the 20 tracks from the US version of the album were Led Zeppelin numbers. From a publishing perspective, Jimmy Page, Robert Plant, John Paul Jones, and the Bonham Estate were the winners here, as well as Willie Dixon, Howlin' Wolf, Peter Green, Elmore James, the Yardbirds' own Jim McCarthy, Keith Relf, and Paul Samuel Smith, and last but not least, Jimmy Rogers and B.B. King. The Crowes got no writing credits on the album, of course.
Jimmy Page and the Black Crowes live at the Greek, playing the best of Led Zeppelin in stores now.
Jimmy Page and the Black Crowes Live at the Greek was released on February 29th, 2000. Total record sales are estimated at 500,000 copies. That's less than half of what Unleaded sold, and similar sales figures to Walking into Clarksdale. Would this have been a better seller with the Black Crowes' material on it? Maybe, but one thing's for sure. This was aimed at Led Zeppelin fans dying to get their hands on a new Jimmy Page release. A 25-day tour was scheduled from June to October of 2000. Because Bill Curbishley managed Page and The Who at the same time, both bands used the same crew and almost the same stage setup. Some shows were played back-to-back, with Page Crowes on one day and The Who the next night. The setlist for the year 2000 is my favorite, with the inclusion of various Led Zeppelin numbers that enhanced the concert experience. The Wonton song was back in full force, another Physical Graffiti number that this lineup managed to replicate to perfection. Misty Mountain Hop made use of Steve Gorman's fantastic drum groove to great effect.
got your hot song for nowhere.
A live debut for Page, Present Zone Hot Song for Nowhere, was the show's theater with all three guitars recreating the 1976 recording to the T. This proves my theory this band was well suited for latter day period Led Zeppelin stuff. Graffiti's progressive rock piece, In the Light, was the first time for Jimmy, a daring and bold move attempting to recreate the intricate layers of sound. Bringing It Home from Zeppelin 2 was a logical choice for this band. 4 Black Crowes numbers were added onto the set: Gone, She Talks to Angels, Bad Luck Blue Eyes Goodbye, and the Zeppelin-inspired Horsehead. Jimmy and the band seemed much more relaxed this time around. The musical chemistry was stronger. Fans thought this would be the beginning of more things to come, which brings us to the infamous finale for the Page Crowes, or Zo Crowes project. Right after their show in Albuquerque on August 12th, 56-year-old Jimmy Page injured his back on the day off in Los Angeles. They recorded a song for The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, where Page struggled with severe back pain. A tough decision was made to first postpone and later cancel all remaining 12 concert dates that included many Page unplanned favorite venues, such as Irvine Meadows, The Gorge, Shoreline Amphitheater, The Woodlands, Reunion Arena in Dallas, and Gund Arena in Cleveland. These shows were not rescheduled over 2 very important reasons. First, because they shared gear and touring crew with The Who, going on their own later that year meant higher operational costs. Second, the insurance policy stated Jimmy could not perform on stage for at least 6 months, which made a possible return date February 2001. And just like that, the project was over.
Oh, thank you, gentlemen. That was great, lads. Thank you, guys. Be right back right after this.
The Black Crowes played one more concert on September 21st, 2000 at the Roseland Ballroom, New York. According to drummer Steve Gorman's book, the real reason Page left was because he allegedly offered to write songs with the Robinson brothers for their next album. Rich Robinson allegedly brushed him off, saying, "No thanks, we don't need more songs." Jimmy was allegedly insulted by this. He made this revelation to Gorman around 2002, and you can be certain it resulted in heated arguments within the Crowes, as Steve Gorman loved playing with Jimmy. Now, it is possible that the Robinsons felt there was an artistic risk in being perceived as Jimmy's backing band in the long run. What was the real benefit of playing so many Led Zeppelin songs? Maybe they got a phone call from Robert Plant with advice to do their own thing. Who knows? The Crowes were picked up by Richard Branson's V2 record label midway through the year 2000. They went into the studio and the recording process went from January to February of 2001. Lions was released on May 7th, 2001. The irony for Black Crowes' 6th studio album is how much it sounds like Led Zeppelin, with critics calling it a poor imitation of the mighty British band. One of the tracks was called Ozone Mama, a clear reference to Zeppelin's own Ozone Baby from Coda. The end result of Lions added fire to the theory of Rich Robinson snubbing Page from a potential writing process. Maybe the Robinsons felt ashamed of their Zeppelin-inspired sketches, or maybe, just maybe, it was another day in the rock and roll office, and they got what they wanted from Jimmy. I recommend you guys revisiting this album and drawing your own conclusions. It is better than Bat Out of Hell. That I guarantee. This was episode 19, and with it, we say goodbye to the Post Led Zeppelin 1990 series. Hope you enjoyed these travels of a decade filled with questions and what-if scenarios that never happened. A decade of reunions, interviews, and lost phone numbers. Luckily for us, there's a lot of albums to revisit and enjoy what Page, Plant, Jones, and Jason Bonham had to say for the 90s. Here's a quick recap of the series. Episode 1 talks about Networth 1990 and Jimmy Page with Aerosmith. Episode 2 goes behind the story of the Remasters box set. Episode 3 takes a look at the making of Coverdale Page. Episode 4 goes into 1992 and the making of Fate of Nations. Episode 5 is a two-part story of the Coverdale Page release campaign and Robert Plant's 1993 concert series. Episode 6 goes over the last days of Coverdale Page. Episode 7 exposes the making of Unleaded and forgetting Jones's phone number. Episode 8 talks about Unleaded Part 2 and the making of The Sporting Life. This is a personal favorite episode of mine. Episode 9 is about Led Zeppelin's third reunion and Jones's infamous comment. Episode 10 goes into the Unleaded tour of 1995, while episode 11 is more unleaded stuff from Latin America 1996. Episode 12 goes to Japan 1996 and the famous T41 issues. Episode 13 deals with the final days of the Unleaded tour in Australia, plus the infamous show in India. Episode 14 is about the making of the BBC sessions from 1997. Episode 15 is Walking into Clarksdale. Episode 16 is Come With Me. Episode 17 is the Walking Into Everywhere tour of 1998. Episode 18 is a showcase of John Paul Jones's Zuma. And episode 19, you guys know by now. Before I go, I want to share my top 10 Post Led Zeppelin songs of the 90s. Just a quick note on my selection. I did not include Come With Me because it's based around Kashmir, so that's cheating. I also left out Unleaded, including the new tracks from these sessions. So here we go. Number 10, When You See the Sun, the Jason Bonham Band, 1997. Jason's vicious drumming with a cast of heavy hitters. Number 9, Scotoseme, The Sporting Life, 1994. The groundbreaking power trio madness of John Paul Jones, Pete Thomas, and Diamanda Gallas. Number 8, When the World Was Young, Walking into Clarksdale, 1998. A song for the ages that sums up life and the brotherhood of rock. Number 7, Title, Zuma, 1999. John Paul Jones's prog rock masterclass. It ranks at number 7 just because the riff is a bit similar to my next pick. Number 6, Calling to You, Fate of Nations, 1993. Holy Love meets Kashmir, a mighty Robert Plant attack. Number 5, Take Me for a Little While, Coverdale Page, 1993. A fitting tribute for lost friends and good times that will never come back. Number 4, The Greatest Gift, Fate of Nations, 1993. Like floating in space, a musical treat for the senses with tasty orchestral motifs. Number 3, Shake My Tree, Coverdale Page, 1993. Jimmy's greatest riff of the decade, a Zeppelin leftover taken to Whitesnake terrains. Number 2, I Believe, Fate of Nations, 1993. Robert's beautiful song to Carrick, the All My Love of the 90s. Sublime and from the heart. And for number 1, I had to go with Don't Leave Me This Way, from Coverdale Page. It's light and shade, Jimmy's greatest solo since Led Zeppelin's demise. David Coverdale wrote the main guitar part and sang his heart out. Page added his magic touch, a track for personal catharsis. You can find my 1990s playlist link on the description below. So this is it, guys. Stick around for what's next here on the channel. In the meantime, you can support me via Patreon and PayPal. The channel keeps growing, more stuff to come. This was the 1990s. Bye bye.